You probably do this if you're the adult child of a narcissistic parent and you still feel guilt about setting boundaries. So I was talking to a client who took one of my courses and watched a video about listening to your inner compass, doing what it tells you. And in her particular situation, she wanted to be able to leave the house and socialize, but she would get some backlash from a narcissistic person in her family, right? So her feedback to me was, hey, I don't think I can do what this module says, which is about setting boundaries when your inner compass tells you to, because I feel it will not have the effect on the narcissistic individual that I want it to. If I just go out for the walk that I wanted to go on, then I'm gonna have to be dealing with like a tense environment in the house, probably the silent treatment. And obviously I didn't have a hard time understanding what her fear was. Obviously, if you've dealt with a narcissistic individual, you're also scared of their reactions when you want to do things that make sense to you, right? But this is the whole point. Nothing will manipulate you more than your emotions. Before she decided to go on the walk or not go on the walk, a voice popped up in her head, an internalized voice, an introject, and it said, you can't do that because he's gonna react this way or that way. And then she was already a prisoner of this inner voice. And so she just stayed at home and was unhappy and didn't go on her walk, right? This is why we need to understand how to have a better relationship with the voices in our head that keep us imprisoned in such relationships. I understand that some people who are dealing with narcissistic family systems are dealing with really dangerous situations and they can't just set boundaries. They're going to have to like escape for their life, you know? And there's those situations, but most situations aren't like life or death situations when you're dealing with narcissistic parents. And the fears that we feel aren't about physically dying. It's more about like losing people we love and not getting validation, maybe losing access to our siblings or other people in the family we don't want to go no contact with. There's a lot of scenarios, right? And all of these voices in our head keep telling us this is what you're going to deal with if you set this boundary. And of course, I understand why we wouldn't set the boundary. But I am here to tell you that this voice in your head that comes from your inner compass loves you in a way that you don't even understand. Because it can see who you're becoming from a bird's eye view. And it knows what you need to face to become what you're actually capable of becoming. The courageous, self-compassionate, strong, whole person that your inner compass wants you to become. I'm trying to tell you that against what all of your inner voices say, when you do the courageous thing, and you do it because it's what your inner compass is telling you to do it, not because the narcissistic individual is going to change, don't count on that happening, then all of the shit show that arises from you finally setting boundaries, all of their reactions, all of this shit show is also part of your growth process. Because you're probably going to get really triggered, and then you're probably going to want to go back to acting the way you did. And again, this is why I say nothing manipulates you more than your emotions. During their shit show, you gotta start building an inner axis that you can go back to, that can allow you to talk to these inner voices and question their way of thinking and convince them from this adult wise self that wants to give you a better life, that it makes sense to go through all this pain. Because it's building the person, the personality, and the life and the sense of self that you've never had. So it's a matter of like, I know if I go on this walk, I'm gonna have to deal with, sorry guys, I broke my finger. But I know that if I go on this walk, I'm gonna have to deal with their shit show. But I also know what my mental health is gonna be like in 5 years' time if I don't start doing what I wanna do. I know that it's going to hurt. I know I'm going to be terrified. I'm going to have insomnia. I'm going to be worried about their reaction for God knows how long. But I also know that every time I pause and act as the wise part of my personality, and I respond to the inner voices that are scared, they have weird, distorted thinking, that are imprisoned by the programming they received from the narcissistic family system. If I don't stop and take on the adult role of talking to these voices, then I'm always going to be the scared, terrified, guilty, ungrateful child of my narcissistic mother or father. And I will never leave that role, the role that was given to me, not the role my inner compass wants me to fulfill. Do you understand? So I want to get to know who you are, what your personality is like, and what you have to contribute to the world when you're following your inner compass. Your inner compass knows what's good for you, not the voices, not your family. I know I sound crazy when I say set boundaries anyways. And I know that lots of you can't do it from the get-go because you're stuck. It took me 5 years to leave my mother's house from the moment I realized I was like, shit, I have to get out of here, to the moment where I finally had the financial and the emotional and social support to do it. So I'm not saying it's gonna happen overnight, but I'm saying that every single time you pause and you do this inner parts work, like you talk to the inner voices, instead of just reacting, you build the inner axis that you have been looking for your whole life, the sense of self and the ability to guide yourself in the midst of incredibly strong emotions like guilt. Did this make sense? Let me know in the comments below. If you want one-on-one support, then get in touch or download your 10 steps to stop your narcissistic parents' control. Break the chains.